Right, are we all rolling?
We're all rolling.
Yeah, everything's rolling.
Great.
This is amazing. Brilliant.
Hello, guys. We are back. You're listening to episode 5. We're getting closer and closer to that number 8.
100 episodes.
No,
Oh, number
baby
8.
steps, Angus.
Oh yeah,
Baby
number
steps.
8 is the.
What's number 8?
So there's like there was like some form of like study that went about was most podcasts tend to kind of die out after the 8th episode.
Okay.
And again, I don't know whether this is like factually true or what the case is, but I'm kind of going with it and just being like, as soon as we get to that number 8 mark, we are officially like pro podcasters, and it's just going to last forever.
I don't know who we got for number 8, but
past.
they've got to be like.
You've actually got to make it past that.
Yeah.
I don't know who we got for number 8, but they've got to be like top level. Otherwise, that's going to be the end. And then we'll never do it again.
Should end it on a high.
Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in, guys. Who have we got on today? You've kind of heard him already.
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, we delving through our list of people to get onto this podcast, we found this guy. And this is... what's your name?
I'm Henry. It's such an honour to be on this podcast. Oh my goodness. Who are you two guys? I bet I was bottom of the barrel.
No sarcasm at
Tick
all.
it off the
I think
bucket
you must
list.
have been scraping the barrel with me. I'm surprised you didn't schedule me for episode 9.
Oh no, Henry, we love you. We love you being here, and we're so thankful that
I
you're
love
here.
It's going to
it.
be great. I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. So we've been for the past few weeks. We've been doing a little segment in which I've been recommending a film to Joel, and we've decided that actually we're going to snip that segment after this
discontinue.
week because it's getting a little bit boring. But I still recommended a series to Joel, and I want a very quick. I'm going to give him 30 seconds to give me a quick review on the series Hollywood on Netflix.
Get the timer
Okay?
rolling.
3, 2, 1, go.
I didn't like it until the final 2 episodes.
Right.
I was
okay.
literally though, like I texted you and I was just like, why have you got me to watch this? It was just the most like random start to
It's
it.
pretty random.
And then as it picked up towards the end when they started to make the film and stuff, I was like, great, like this is something that I could
5
listen
seconds.
to, and I would give it a solid 7 out of 10 just on the ending
Great.
alone.
Well, that's that segment done and completely
Wait,
dead for the rest
What
of
was
the
it about? What is it?
You've not given me enough time.
Yeah, Joel, your
Angus.
synopsis was awful. Your synopsis was so bad.
Can you give me like 2 minutes and I'll explain? Right. So
No.
it's about a young actor who's just moved to LA who wants to like make it in the film business, and then realizes when he gets there that it's actually a lot harder than a lot more hard than he thought it would be. And
The American Dream.
yeah, like the American dream
Yeah.
just kind of hit him, and he then has to then go and like do some unfavorable actions to various people at a gas station. That's probably the best way that I can. And then that's why I was just like, I don't really
Unfavourable.
want to watch this anymore. But then it kind of like leads on from
But
there.
then it changes quite quickly,
Angus
doesn't it?
just
Like a lot
punched
of
his
stuff.
mic.
Like I just punched my mic. Yeah.
But yeah, like overall, it's
Yeah.
it's a good little show. I would recommend it if you like that sort of thing. But
Great.
I think
Awesome.
I'm so glad that segment is dead now.
Yeah,
Dead.
because I was finding it really difficult to recommend films to you, and you didn't like any of them. So,
Are you quite
Yeah.
picky with films,
Anyway.
Joel?
If a film's shot well, I'm happy. Which this was shot very well.
Is that
was
the
very
main
short-
thing you're
short
looking
very
for?
Yeah, obviously I want a good story as well. But if I can like visually connect with something, then I'm like,
That's good.
I'll go with it. But I would say that I wasn't totally happy with the thing, so I'm calling that as a 2-1 victory for me on that.
Yeah, okay. I will concede defeat. Well, anyway, we've got a much more exciting segment today. We have Henry Milne here, and I mean, I could give
Everything's fallen down. Everything's fallen down. It's all
For
gone
those
wrong.
of you watching
It's all gone wrong.
on YouTube, Henry has just punched his phone or whatever.
I thought it was bad when Angus punched the mic. I've just punched the.
He's just
phone.
gone flying across the room. You won't have seen it because we're recording it on cameras, but that was brilliant. That was brilliant.
class.
Gonna.
So, Henry, I've just given Joel 30 seconds to talk about this thing. If I can give you 30 seconds to introduce yourself and talk about your life, starting in 3, 2, 1. 30 seconds, go.
Okay, so I'm Henry. I was born in Shoreham near Worthing. Grew up in a Christian family, and
20 seconds.
I loved art and music at school. So I've decided to get into that kind of thing. I'm a songwriter.
10 seconds.
I also like designing and creating videos and creative things.
5.
And I'm married to Hannah, who's the love of my life.
Yay!
Yeah, there we go. Great. That's amazing. Well, we learnt quite a lot about Henry from that, but we're also just to learn even more about you. I'm going to give you some quick fire questions to answer, okay? And you only have 3 seconds to answer each one of
This
these.
is so
okay?
stressful. I didn't realize this
So
podcast was so stressful.
I hope with the lag of the internet, this isn't going to be too awkward. Okay, you have 3 seconds to answer every single one of these. Okay, first thing that comes to your head. Are you ready?
All right.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite meat?
Pork.
What's your favorite color?
Yellow.
What's your favorite album?
Under Oath. Define the Great Line. I couldn't decide which Under Oath album.
What noise does a duck make?
Quack.
What noise does a squid make?
Squid.
What's the last thing you ate?
Toasty.
What's the last thing you drank?
Water.
Okay, and then grab the nearest thing to you that's name begins with M.
Mouse.
What I love is there's a microphone right in front of you.
Oh yeah.
And you. Well,
wow.
We learnt a bit about Henry there. So you spoke a little bit about what you do, but do you want to talk about sort of what do you do at the moment? What's sort of filling your time? What sort of what are you creating? What are you putting out? All that jazz.
Yeah, great. So I work for St. Peter's Church in Brighton. And my job is I look after the kind of creative team and also kind of creative direct some projects, and I also look after like the branding and design and all that kind of thing. I kind of oversee it and like work with amazing volunteers and amazing team, which these 2 guys are a part of at St. Peter's. And so my favourite part is just, getting people involved with different projects that we do as a church. And at the moment, since lockdown, we've been putting church online. So that's been the main thing that we've been doing. So every Sunday, we'll have a service online, which we call it the Sunday check-in, which is a chance to check in with each other and see and kind of hear a bit from the family. We tend to have an interview with someone, and we worship together and we hear a talk. And so my role is I help kind of produce that kind of
Awesome.
the running order, and then also edit the videos and stuff each week. So that's what I've been spending most of my time doing.
We're definitely going to talk a bit more in depth about online church a little bit later on.
Nice.
Because I think you've got some really, really valuable insights that could be really, really useful to people listening. I know that you probably don't think that you do, but you definitely do. So sort of how did Henry's journey start in the creative side of things? What did you, because obviously you mentioned from a young age you were very much into like art and music and all that sort of stuff. How did you decide, oh, this is what I want to do in my life, this is what I want to go on and do? Was it a fairly progressional thing, or was it like one day you made the decision, or stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm from my family is very creative. So my dad was a graphic designer. His dad was a graphic designer as well.
wow.
My brother was a graphic designer. Also, he's like a furniture maker. My mum's she's a singer. I just from a very creative family, and from an early age was always kind of brought up. I don't know, in an environment which allowed me and my brothers to kind of be creative and not worry too much about failure or to give things a go, and which I really appreciate. And so, yeah, I kind of grew up really enjoying art and music as well. And so when I was, 13 or whatever, and got my first electric guitar, straight away, like, wanted to start writing music. Probably started writing music before I even like started learning songs. But and so then I kind of like have been in bands and things and realized that I enjoyed to create music, but also, yeah, I just realized that whatever it was, whether it was music or whether it was art or drawing or something, I just really enjoyed creating. So after school, I put all my eggs in the kind of music basket and studied that, like, at college and university. And through that was also continued songwriting and was in more bands. And so music's always been a part of like my life. But yeah, as well as that, I've, like, as I said, with the kind of the graphic designers in my family, I've always really enjoyed that as well. So what I got to do as part of St. Peter's was a mixture of both. As part of our worship team, we get to do kind of music and kind of also design and creative stuff within that as well.
So you said about starting kind of music when you got your first electric guitar. Was that kind of like the first kind of like time that you started thinking like, oh, like music's kind of what I want to do and like stuff like that, or was there something a little bit earlier?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's like I was always interested in artier things, creative things, rather than like academic things. But it probably wasn't until around the age of like 13. I think it was when it was my music teacher that said that I was quite good at like the composing or something. And I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that I was any different to anyone else.
Oh, cool.
So that was when I kind of like thought, oh, I'd like to do that more. So it wasn't probably until then that, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do in my life, and I still don't. But I definitely.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
Exactly. Yeah.
So like, what was the kind of the first step where you were just like, oh, like this is kind of what I want to do? Like, did you like join a band, or did you start doing stuff yourself, or what was the kind of process with that?
Yeah, well, because I was in bands, but I probably didn't imagine that I'd ever be like a rock star, like as my full job, or for like. But I did. But I had always wondered about like doing music for Moving Image, or just being like a songwriter. So that's probably kind of what made me think, whether this would be a thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. I don't even know if Angus knows this. I grew up in quite a musical family myself, so I was like in and around that. I'm like the opposite of like musical. Like, I can't play anything apart from like the occasional ukulele or whatever, but like I was brought up in that kind of environment where it was kind of going, like, my parents were always playing music and stuff like that, and it's kind of given me that extra little bit. I still don't quite know what I'm talking about when it comes to it, but it gives me it. Just like growing up around it, there's so many different levels to it, and especially like it's very similar to like what I do and like what we do is with like the media stuff, but I didn't realize how much went into kind of like music and like audio production. So like, what you said that you were like kind of in and around those kind of setups with, whether that was like just playing yourself or like bands and stuff.
Yeah.
Did you start, when was the first time you kind of did like a big kind of show in front of people, or?
it was probably like, so this was in like secondary school, that I was in a band. I was in a band called the Llama Guns. Very
The
cool.
what now? The
Brilliant.
Llama Guns.
Llama Guns, yeah. And we would do like the school like talent shows, and then like that was that was
The
what we
Llama
were-
Guns
do
slaying the
that
school talent show.
in front of people. Yeah, and that was a big crowd at the time.
How many
for
people were
us.
in the Llama
Oh.
Guns?
There was 4 of us.
4. Wow.
Was it-
What style and genre?
It was probably like kind of like indie music.
Oh, brilliant. Have you got any
I don't.
any recordings?
Well,
Oh.
I do, but I don't know.
Basically, you do, but not that we can.
Yeah,
not
that's
that we can have
public.
access to.
Exactly.
So, obviously, talking about music and stuff. Obviously, we both know that a few years ago, was it a few years ago? Maybe you sort of started with this project, on off on. I never actually. I regret. I never actually got to like properly ask you about on off on. So I guess this is the perfect opportunity.
Great. Yeah.
Talk us through what you envisioned it as, because it's a music project more than anything else. It was sort of a so let's talk us through just sort of like vision behind it, and all
Yeah,
of that.
sure. Well, I think I realised that even though I'd been doing quite a lot of songwriting, it'd been a long time since I'd like done any writing that was like felt like my own voice or like my own thing. Like, I've been doing a lot of writing as part of the church and as like and with other people for their projects, and I kind of didn't have anything, and so I thought, oh, well, it would be worth trying to like, I don't know, do my own project and see what kind of happened. And so I started to do a bunch of writing that was a bit more like just off my own, off my own like ideas and things. And then came up with On Off On. And the kind of style of it was just a bit of like experimenting with a few different types of music or things that I liked. And then kind of like landed on this slightly more like synthy kind of vocoder style thing that then like I kind of quite liked. So did a 5-track kind of EP, and yeah, called it On Off On, did a few like shows and stuff. And like, I still kind of am doing bits and bobs, like kind of still doing a few, like writing that could come under the kind of On Off On name. But yeah, as you say, like, I'm not sure if I did it because I wanted to be like an artist or something necessarily, or that's cool. But like, because I've got some thoughts with it that like might not necessarily look quite like a standard, I don't know, artist. And would like to do some like music for video and for film, which could also come under the kind of On Off On banner, and also that style of music as well could be cool. So
I guess it was sort of like a creative outlet.
Yeah,
more
exactly.
Than more than I want to, sort of like, this is going to be my future or whatever. It was more a sort of, I've got all these ideas, spew them out onto some paper and play them, like.
And I think, and I'd
so
encourage
cool.
people, like, I think that's an important thing to do. Like, just have an outlet for your kind of art or your creativity, or at least just like, it feels a shame to not, if you've got stuff in there, to not get it out and like, I don't know, see what it sounds like, see what it looks like.
No, honestly, some of those songs were absolute bangers. They were. I remember I came to do a like a video project back here for, I think it was like a local school or whatever, and they sent me all of the stuff and then said, "Oh, we'd really love to use this song," and then sent me Weathered Palms, and I was like, "Hang on a second, did I just read that right? Like, that was
Nice.
Henry." Like, and they were like, "Yeah, no, it just came up on Spotify. It sounds great." I'm like, "Okay, great, awesome."
Nice.
Like, so yeah, but yeah, that's really cool. That was like you were like, I need a creative outlet to put out all of these ideas, kind of thing, and it was so cool. I guess we can sort of move from that into Bright City a bit,
Nice.
and talk about sort of stuff like that. I don't. Maybe I'll hand over to Joel because I've been saying quite a lot.
So when did you first get involved with Bright City?
So Bright City, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like the part of our church. Well, actually, I'll tell you the story of how it came about. But
that'd be amazing.
Great.
That'd be so cool.
It must have been about, I don't know how long ago, 5 or 6 years ago, or something like that. Around then, we, as some of the songwriters, as part of the church, got together and did some writing with kind of no real there wasn't we're going to write a record or anything. It was just we just knew we wanted to do some songwriting. So we got together and had a couple I think it was 2 or 3 day retreat of songwriting, and at the end of it we had 13 tracks, and it was oh wow, there's these amazing songs that we didn't even know were there, and they were all just within us. And so at this point we then decided to record them and release them as a record. And so that was the start of, that kind of birthed Bright City, which was the name that we kind of gave it. It's funny because there was a song called Bright City, the album was called Bright City, and I think we became called Bright City. It was but yeah, that was the start of it. And basically from there, we've been just kind of working out. It was kind of it was no intention to do that. That just happened. And then it was kind of okay, so what is Bright City? And so Bright City now is the worship movement of the church. So it's the team of people at St. Peter's who kind of musicians, producers, artists, designers, dancers, kind of I would just call it a creative team. But so, and since then we've done 3 kind of records and an instrumental record. So yeah, we literally just released one called Change.
Yes, last week.
Yeah,
that was
exciting.
amazing. That's so cool. So I get, so you're involved from the beginning pretty much. You sort of
so I was one of the writers at the beginning, which amazing. Was really cool.
That's so cool. So obviously you released the Bright City album. How did that I don't actually remember it. I don't remember it coming out. I remember the second album coming out. But the first album, how did that sort of go down? Was that almost a release and then the church picked it up and then slowly it sort of got bigger, or was it how did that sort of end up coming out, sense of...
Well, it was exciting time because so first time that the church had released a record, and the songs on that first record are quite each song's quite different, and it sounds like I don't know, it's a different artist per song. And a lot of them we kind of, after writing them, we've played a few of them at church, but probably not loads, like only 20% of the album we probably actually led at church. So there's a bit of well, what is this? Is it an artist album? Is it a worship album? Is it so there was kind of questions around that. But it was amazing that the kind of response from the church itself, and just so supportive, and everyone loving the songs and having it on in their cars, and that was so cool. And we didn't have any expectations for it. So for anyone to pick it up outside of St. Peter's was kind of wow, this is cool, this is awesome.
No, I do remember. I remember Hello Maker coming out, and I remember that being actually quite big in the sort of Church of England, network, in a sense. It's it did come out and it was whoa, there's this cool album from these random people in Brighton. And all of these songs are actually really, really cool. And then they got bigger and bigger, and it amazes me sometimes when I go onto the Bright City Spotify to see how many streams some of them have got. I'm what? You wouldn't even imagine how much of an impact some of those songs have had. And they really do and they resonate with quite a few people as well. I could go to the most remote church and I'd walk in, they'd be my life is built, and I'd be what? This is so weird. But yeah, so it's sort of, there was such an impact with that album, especially. I don't know whether that was felt as much in Brighton as it was sort of around the place, because I remember seeing well, actually, this was before I moved to Brighton, but bumping into everyone at Focus and getting to know everybody at Focus. And I think Hello Maker had just come out, and it was huge, and it was whoa, this is this is our creative oh, am I back?
Lost you.
and we've lost him again.
Awesome.
Great.
Sorry for causing that little.
Yeah, so after a little bit of technical difficulties, we are now back with the amazing Henry Milne. Continue on.
Hello.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about Bright City, I think. Anyway, so we've had the Bright City album, Hello Maker, and then Still. So I'm really interested in Still, because Still was like, it seemed like a huge project, like a sort of, but this is it's a what is it? It's a line of albums from Integrity Music.
Yes. Yeah.
That are just instrumental versions of worship records by their different artists. I don't know how much you can tell us about Still.
Yeah. Well, there's.
But if you talk about that, that'd be great.
The first one, Rivers and Robots did. So yeah, they did
Right.
The kind of concept is like instrumental songs, worship songs. So some of like, although I think for Rivers and Robots and I don't think any of the songs were their own, but it's an amazing album actually, like really beautiful album. And we got asked to do the second one, which was like so cool because and actually even from like early days we had in mind to do like some kind of instrumental thing. I think like there's such power in the music as well as the lyrics, and so when we got asked to do it, it was like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome, well definitely do that. And Johnny, who does kind of most of the production for Bright City, kind of took that project on, and so we kind of as a wider team decided on the songs that we were going to do. So we even like, so the whole Bright City team, which is like was about 50 people or something, wrote the kind of top songs that they would want on that record, and we from that kind of worked out what we'd put on it. So that was a really cool process. And then Johnny in the studio kind of masterminding everything, invited members of the team to come in and record different parts. And so we did mostly kind of other people's songs, but then we had a few of our own songs on there as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was a good fun project.
Brilliant. Sounds so good. And I guess that this all sort of built up to the new album, because the new album that actually only just came out. It came out last Friday. So, firstly, that was such a mammoth project. So, like, I guess congratulations. It's finally like relaxed a bit, I guess. But obviously, what I loved about, because we'll talk about the live recording as well. But when we were doing live recording and we got the set list through, and I was like, whoa, this is so good. Like, we got some old songs in there, we got some new songs in there, like the song My Prayer that I saw was in there. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great, because I actually first heard that song after giving my life to Jesus, and then heard it and I was like an emotional wreck. So like, that's amazing. So on the night it was even more of an emotional wreck. But wow. What I love about the new album is that, as I say, it's got all the old stuff in it, and then it's also got some really, really powerful new songs. And these new songs are going to make quite I don't want to be ironic, but they're going to make quite a lot of a change. And they're going to, like, they are going to sort of break through, and they are going to make a big impact. So I'm not going to get you to break down every song, don't worry. But obviously you're quite heavily involved with the writing process and stuff like that. So do you want to just talk about like how it started, how we sort of you started formulating the ideas for these new songs at least?
Yeah, amazing. Well, we'd been doing a bit of writing. This process we wasn't kind of like a big writing retreat that we then got a bunch of songs from. We'd just kind of been writing over the years and kind of working up a few different kind of ideas and stuff, to the point at which then we thought, oh, well, let's intentionally write for a record. And so we kind of started to develop on some of the ideas that we'd had. And from that we had it was 6 new songs that kind of came out of that we felt were kind of like strong enough for the record, which was perfect because we had in mind that we wanted to do a live record, and it felt right to also in that live record have some of the songs from the first two albums as well. And so that actually kind of 6 songs that kind of was perfect really. And so with the combination of some of the other ones, it kind of made up the album. But the new songs, I mean, some of those ideas are like a couple of years old, and I mean, even Change was an idea that we kind of was just on the kind of back burner and was really cool and exciting, but like didn't feel like it was ready. And then so to pick that kind of back up and work on that, and then for it to become the kind of title track was really cool. And so that's like an encouragement if you're a songwriter and you've got songs that you've had for a few years and that like aren't ever finished. Like sometimes it's just the timing of it, or it's just like fresh inspiration for those. But that's really cool. And then other songs that kind of came quite quickly, and I mean, there's often we with our writing we'd have like a theme or like an idea. So something like Not Going Back actually just like started with just a title, and it wasn't even that title. It was the title was Slavery Days, and that's what it started with. And we worked on that and decided that we wanted a kind of a song that was like celebration and upbeat and kind of up that kind of you could imagine off the back of like a baptism service or someone kind of being saved or like that kind of thing. So that's the kind of inspiration for that song. And we kind of get inspiration from all different types of things, and songs come about in all different types of ways. Sometimes it's lyrics, sometimes it's melody, sometimes just a theme or a title. But
I remember when you first led Not Going Back in the original form, because I was mixing that Sunday, and I was struggling with the mix anyway. And
oh no, I bet you weren't. I bet the mix was fine.
And it was the 9:30, and it was just like
tumbleweed.
Literally tumbleweed. And I was like, is it me? Have I messed it up? And then I remember it must have been 2 or 3 months later when you first led it at a baptism service, and it was just after the baptism, and it was like, oh my Lord, this is like, what?
Oh man. Yeah.
How did we get from this song to this song?
It was cringeworthy the first time we led that. It was kind of like, close your eyes and just get through it. Like,
we've started it, just go for it now.
Just go for it. Like, kind of like people on the front row, like just faces of like confusion and like, or like me trying to get them to clap. It's like, what are you trying to get me to do? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, again,
I like calling it the I've smelled a bad fart look. 'Cause you get it at the Church of England quite a lot. Is whenever you're doing a new song or whatever, it's just like, what? Like, it just looked like they smelled a bad fart.
But we persisted and we finished the song, and we saw it in the context that we imagined it. So yeah.
I feel like I've just kind of sunk to the bottom of the pile here, because I have no idea what you're talking about when it comes to music. But something I can talk about is obviously you did the live album for the album, but you also did a series of videos for them as well. Can you kind of tell us what that sort of process was like, and how were you involved at all with like the creative side of that, or?
Yeah. And do you mean the live videos or like the graphics and stuff? Yeah.
So the live stuff.
Yeah. So like kind of, it was the first time we did a live record, and it was also the first time we'd ever really filmed anything like that before. So it was all kind of very new to us and quite ambitious that we were going to do a live record and film it as well in our building. Yeah. And so it was a very fun project, and also just a lot of learning from it. So we filmed it at the 10-year anniversary of St. Peter's. So like packed the room full of people. And as you say, we basically had a team. So I was involved, in kind of, I was involved a bit, but not really. It was an amazing team of people filming and kind of like directing it all. Shout out to Fruit Media. Shout out to We Are Even as well.
Love Fruit Media.
So Fruit Media and We Are Even collab. So an amazing team of like videographers and guys kind of working on that. But yeah, such a new process because it was trying to get everything to be right in the moment. So you're kind of working on the music and all that being recorded right in the moment. You're also working on like the lighting in the room being right. So that's all rehearsed and like amazing Freddie, who did all the lights and designed up the kind of lighting. It was
amazing.
And then operated it on the night. And that all has to be in time and in sync and the right colors. Then you're using graphics as well on the screen, which like is also syncing up with the lights and then filming it. So it was all like all these things. So it couldn't have been like, it was just so stressful. But
there was so much that came together like on the day. It was just insane. I remember it was at lunchtime when like we suddenly realized that like, Will hadn't programmed any of the Ableton stuff in to trigger all the graphics. And it was like, quickly, somebody get him the project file, do that or whatever. Like I was still, we were still, me and, honestly, the crew that were there that week were just like insane. Obviously we've got Freddie Minier on lights and then Jack Murray as well, sort of heading up the sort of rigging and everything like that. And then I was there with them as well, but not really doing much. But we were still putting lights up on the day and still doing some stuff.
So much happening. I mean, we were like tweaking the lyrics on the day. so we had to like change.
I wasn't going to mention that.
Change some of the lyric videos like on the day. So I'm like asking Will, like he's already synced all the videos, like, and I'm like, I could change it, change the lyric.
And then obviously the incredible Matt Hill sort of taking over sort of recording, and then Adam Dixon on front of house. Yeah. There were so many amazing people that sort of pulled it together in a sense of like, and it literally was. It was so. I don't think any of us are going to forget it in a hurry. Like being there on the night, like everyone who was there was like, wow.
Yeah, I was gutted that I wasn't there.
Yeah, John wasn't there.
I heard about it early because there was a few talks about video team and stuff like that, but then all went quiet, and then I saw it was happening. I was like, why wasn't I here? Like I really want to be here and just see this in person. But like just watching all of the videos back, it's like they're so like well put together, and like it all sounds great. And yeah, I think everyone involved should be really proud of kind of what they've done.
It felt good. It felt like we captured a bit of, because some of what even the songwriting and also the reason to record it in the building was to like capture a bit of this epic building in the center of Brighton, and so that was really captured with the video and even with the lighting. Some of the choices of like lighting up the actual building itself rather than just the stage, and like wanted to kind of like get a bit of that in it. And so really glad that some of that comes across.
That like ultra wide shot from the back is just like wow.
On the Jesus shelf.
Yeah,
literally, there's like a big cross at the back of St. Peter's, and they just built a like a platform and just screwed it to the cross, and then just stuck in a mirror on it. And it was like, it's like what kind of? And it's like what? But it looked insane. It was like.
Yeah, and then obviously along with like that sort of creative side of the videos, there was obviously also the side of like the graphics and the artwork and stuff. Obviously each of the singles had like a set kind of artwork, and they all had the different coloured kind of lines. What was kind of the thoughts behind that, or what was the thought process behind those lines and how it all kind of went into the album cover as a whole?
Yeah, great. So the artwork, I'll kind of work together with Ollie Purchase and also Josh Price, who designed everything, and he'd been the designer from the previous records as well. And so we wanted to develop the kind of like Slash brand type thing further. So that was in the first album and also the second album. All the kind of icons make up the Slash. We wanted to take it another step and use that again. And we kind of came up with this concept of just like each song had assigned its own color and own direction. And actually also on the night we used like live like graphics and stuff, which were made by Luke Brown. And we took photos of textures and things around Brighton as well. So each song had its own kind of texture and feeling and color and direction, which then like when all these kind of strands are put together, it makes up the complete album. So the bit of the kind of idea is that like the team or like each song, each person comes with a different thing and is diverse in themselves, and together it makes up the kind of full record and an album. So that was a bit of the kind of heart for the artwork, which was really cool. And so it's cool seeing that kind of across the live graphics, and then also like the kind of single artwork, and then finally the album.
Yeah, I love that it all just kind of like comes together as a whole. When you see the whole project in all its glory, it's like you've got all of these like single kind of artwork pieces that have kind of come together into like one big thing, and it's just like, yeah, it's just really nice.
It looks it's so cool seeing the sort of like the mystery of all the single covers going, why is there just like a wonky line?
Yeah.
And then you see them together in the album and you're like, whoa, this is sick. Like, yeah, that's so cool. It's honestly, I just talking about it makes me miss being in that building and being in and doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we're in lockdown at the moment, obviously. Firstly, how are you coping with lockdown? How are you finding it, like, yourself?
Yeah, good question. I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm like, I think as an introvert and also like, I don't know, a creative as well, maybe a part of it as well. Like, I'm not bored. Like, I can think like that's not one of the issues that I'm facing. There's like plenty that I'm happy like pottering on with, or like writing music or designing or something. So that's fine. I mean, I definitely miss people, and like I'm definitely want it to be over so I could like hang out with friends and family. But doing okay. I think like I found like making routines really helpful for me. So it gave a bit of structure. And so like even like as far as like 11 o'clock coffee, and every Saturday going out for a bike ride and having a barbecue or something, those kind of things really helped me, and helped me and my wife Han survive. But definitely ready for it to be done now. Oh my goodness.
It's surprising how much more work lockdown is.
Totally. Yeah.
Like even just putting stuff together and whatever, it's just so much more effort now that we can't
totally.
Go and do stuff in person.
Know,
Speaking of which, obviously carry on.
No, I was just gonna say like, because there's the pressure of like, oh, it's an amazing time to create because I've got lots of free time, but then everything as you say is a bit harder, and it's harder to motivate yourself. Yeah, so then you're stuck 100%. Thinking, should I be doing all I've got so much time, I should be like doing this huge project or something, but then actually everything's harder and more difficult. So you're kind of stuck in this loop. So that's one of the things I've definitely found.
Speaking of which, obviously church is online now. You've obviously taken the sort of lead on the St. Peter's check-in and putting that together. How are you finding that? Are you finding that challenging? I mean, also obviously in the past couple of weeks it's changed a bit. You're now able to film stuff in person and film stuff with people sort of together, obviously socially distanced, but together at least in a building or whatever. But before that, when you were doing all these like split screen worship and or even I remember the first couple of weeks where it wasn't even split screen worship, it was just one person, and it and all this sort of stuff. How are you finding? Obviously it is a lot more effort than putting together a normal service, but how are you finding the sort of the creative process of it? Is it hard to make it feel fresh, or is it fairly easy, or is it?
No, it's good. Yeah, I have been enjoying it actually, and I'm trying to think like what's quite satisfying about it and what's different to normal church is that like you can actually make it a lot more polished than like a normal service on a Sunday, which is like where you can't do any redos, and if you get the lyrics wrong, it's happened, and all that stuff's fine, and we got a lot of grace for that, and we're really happy for things to go wrong. But it's going to be interesting going back now that we can with church like make it way more polished, and like I can cut stuff out of. Not that I do, but I could cut stuff out of talk, or like if Archie says something wrong, I can just about edit it, or like, well, not always, but sometimes you can do a lot really, and the transitions and things like that. So it's going to be interesting going back to church where things aren't as polished as that, and a bit more chaotic and a bit more clunky. And so like having this weird kind of experience, like it is a weird experience of church. Like I think us not being together is weird, and like no doubt about it. This isn't an improved model, I don't think, but there probably are stuff that like is definitely good to learn from this time. Even like we're not thinking about Sundays, but like just in church in general, us being forced out of the building is probably a good thing. And like we can't expect people to come to us. We've got to like as Christians kind of be in our cities and in our neighborhoods and meet the need of our city. I think that's one of the things that like one of the positive learnings from this whole experience.
Yeah. How did, obviously we sort of saw St. Peter's go through a few different changes to how the online stuff was being done. I remember the first week was live in the church, and you had like 3 or 4 cameras set up and someone switching them and doing it all sort of. And then obviously we went into lockdown that week, I think. It must have been the day afterwards. And then I remember, I mean, shout out to the wonderful Mason Nelson, because I remember the next week he was then running it all from his house,
amazing, yeah.
just on TriCaster, just like playing videos. And I think the audio was behind because his Wi-Fi wasn't holding up and all this sort of stuff. But then obviously you move to what quite a few churches are doing now is the YouTube premiere and doing it all in advance and then setting it to upload as a live video kind of thing. How did within that, how did you as a team sort of come to the format that we've reached now in the sort of in how it works, having the, you know, like the little checking in with the whoever little graphics and stuff like that? Was it a fairly sort of, this is what we want to achieve, let's go for it? Or was it fairly like, oh, this works, you know? And was any of it like from looking at, because I mean, I've been looking at other churches as well. So like, was any of it from watching other people and taking ideas, or was it pretty much homegrown? And then, you know, because I've seen a lot of churches who've taken ideas from St. Peter's, so I wanted to know if it's a bit more of a circle.
Yeah, we're probably all just stealing each other's ideas. Yeah, well, it's definitely been a learning process. Like, I don't think there was a point where we were like, this is exactly how it should be, no doubt about it, let's make it like this. Just trying to think. So some of the thought process was we wanted to have a bit of a structure to the check-in, so it felt kind of like you were in a familiar structure. So that hence we kind of like, if you watch any of the check-ins, we'll start with a welcome, then it has kind of like a checking in with, or like kind of like family news, or kind of a segment there, into then worship, prayer, kind of interview, talk, song at the end. Like I particularly thought felt that having that kind of like safety is quite good, and then within that you can be creative, but having some kind of structure is quite, maybe that was just me thinking in terms of like my editing head, just like quite satisfying knowing, kind of having an idea what it's going to be like this week in advance. But yeah, definitely found that, and we kind of, another thing, just wanting with the checking in with kind of segment, wanting things to be upbeat and lighthearted and fun. So like one of my favorite weeks was when we checked in with the youth, and they just did the kind of dance to that blinded by the light song. I can't know what the song's called.
Oh yeah,
show my age. Like keeping things like lighthearted and stuff. So there's, we've kind of, it's been a learning process with things like editing the worship, and because I mean that was something that I definitely was noticing other churches and what they were doing and other people, and as you say, there was a real progression, and like everyone kind of like was changing their videos week by week, in terms of like started with just someone to camera, and then it was like, oh, we could do split screen, and then you could actually change who you're seeing, like like on the song. And there was kind of this progression that like all the churches at the same time did. I think for like us, it was a bit of working out like what we were trying to achieve, because I mean the sky's the limit with like editing. We could like edit together anything, like whatever, but I guess like we wanted it also to be a time of like worship. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? So the kind of having the filter of like whatever is going to best lead people in their homes and in this kind of weird situation where we're not all together, like, and we're kind of singing in our homes, what is the best thing therefore that we could do that's going to like lead people? So actually for quite a while I didn't want to do the kind of choppy worship thing, which we did actually in the end, but if we could have just two people on screen the whole time, that might be less distracting or something than changing it all the time. But there's lots of different reasons for all different things, and there's some amazing creative videos out there of like worship, and that it does lead people really well, and that is amazingly edited and very creative, and like I think I don't know if you guys have it, but like it's very easy as a creative to compare yourself to other people and like to how other people edit things or do things, and I definitely fall into that trap of like, someone else is editing it a certain way, like, or like someone else is creating this amazing content, like can I do that, or like am I being rubbish?
I think it's interesting you say that actually, because I'm currently doing all of the church stuff for my current church. Well, I go to both Aaron and then St. Peter's in the evening when lockdown isn't a thing. So I'm currently doing all of the online stuff for them. So I kind of know what you're talking about and stuff like that with like the like seeing what other people are doing and stuff. So because obviously I'm editing that one throughout the week, I often find myself watching the St. Peter's ones on a Sunday, and it's just so refreshing to see how like adaptive you are each week. Like you see something and then you're like, oh, like we could do this better, and it always seems to get better and better each week. And that's kind of the same thing as what we've done. We found that a lot of people, like not just myself, just like the people that are sending in clips from the worship team, and like we do a family check-in, so we like chat with like families and stuff and just see how they're like holding up and stuff like that. And you really see like people like watching it one week and then being like, oh, like I could do it better this week, and kind of just like a constant progression. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've seen from the lockdown stuff, especially within churches. It's everyone's kind of just taken like a step up, and it's just like, oh, like we can really make some really great stuff, and I really hope that it kind of continues on from there. But how many people like week in week out do you reckon are kind of like helping to put together your services?
Well, like there's like I'm trying to think. There's a small team of us who actually edit.
Okay.
And then, but there's a team of like 5 or 6 of us that kind of come up with what we're going to do and decide on what we're going to do this week. So we had a meeting today to decide on this Sunday, and then we've each going out and getting the content that we need, which then comes back to me, and then I edit the check-in together. So I kind of put everything together, and I'll edit the worship, and I'll edit the talk and put the titles on and all that kind of all the graphics and stuff I'd do. And then I would give that to Jim Elliott, who then color grades everything. Also is just another pair of eyes to check everything over.
For sure.
He'd like adjust audio levels or something if he noticed something that wasn't quite right, or I feel way more confident knowing that it's been through Jim. He's just got such an eye for detail. So and it still doesn't change the fact that on a Sunday morning I'm still like terrified that I've like left in an outtake or something. But but knowing that Jim's had it and he's kind of coloured everything, and he's got the hardest job because he's got to try and make iPhone footage look like good and try and like match the colours in things. And
I remember talking about leaving in outtakes. I remember just at the beginning of lockdown, I was editing together like a little youth service for a church near here, and the person talking just like halfway through a talk was like, oh damn it, and then did about like 15 seconds of that or whatever, and then went back into it. I completely missed it, and it just went up. And in the middle of her talk, she was just like, oh, and just completely gave up in the middle of the talk. And I was like,
That's amazing.
and then somebody messaged me being like, oh, by the way, you left that outtake. And I was like, what? Oh, no.
The amount of times that I've nearly left those in are like, luckily I have like 2 or 3 people that will watch it through before it goes up. So they kind of spot everything. But the amount of times where I've like done the final watch through and then they're just like, oh no, can we go again? Like take 3.
Yeah,
and then like a little clap and stuff like that. And I'm like,
oh man,
like if that goes up and like hundreds of people are seeing this, it's gonna be so embarrassing.
So embarrassing, I know.
But from like what you've kind of learnt from doing these like lockdown services, have you picked up anything, or are there any like tips that you could like give to anybody out there watching and that wants to kind of up their church game or? Yeah,
it's good question. I guess like trying to capture so the kind of values and the essence of the church as much as you can. So like as I mentioned, the kind of like we wanted to go out of our way to make the check-in feel light. So even like the way that we shot our check-in now, so we are shooting it in the church, and we've decided to kind of like do it in an area of the church that feels light and like feels like morning vibes, and like it feels bright and playful. And so because that was a value that we wanted to communicate, and then also, as I said, with the kind of like getting the youth to do some like dance and stuff like that, what are the values you're wanting to communicate, and trying to use that in the way that you shoot it or edit it together. I think also thinking about who you're creating it for. So is your church check-in for like, or service whatever you call it, for your congregation, or do you want it to be aimed at people that if you're logging on for the first time, you're kind of pointed to the right, like the website, or you're pointed to the right things, or you could understand the language. I think that's important as well, like who you're aiming your check-in to. And
I think that's a huge thing actually, because it's like, do you want it just to kind of be going to this small group of people, and you can kind of tailor it to what you've kind of gathered from your like in-person church services, or do you want to make this like something that's going to be seen by even more people than would regularly be there on a Sunday? And it's actually quite nice that these church services can be seen by just anybody. Just a bit of a random one, but our church, like our pastor got a text from the pastor of Disneyland World in is it Florida? So he basically he sent a text and was just like, oh, like I've been like really touched by your like worship and stuff that you've been doing on your Sundays and stuff, and I've been sharing it to all the cast and all the crew like whilst we've not been open and stuff. And it's like it's crazy how like just this little church in a little village can then be like kind of seen on like the other side of the world by potentially some reasonably big names from Disney. And it's like
wow.
And I'm sure that's the case with your church. I'm sure that it's been shared around all over the place, and it's being reached by potentially people that have wanted to go to like St. Peter's and stuff in the past, but haven't been able to get down to Brighton or whatever. And now they really get like kind of an insight into how you do things and what it's kind of like to be a part of the church. And I think that's one of the big things that I've taken from this.
Quite a few people who recently have gone through stuff that has meant that they've wanted to try church, and it's been so easy just to be like, just join me at St. Peter's, just send them the link, instead of, come along to this church, meet all these people and all this sort of stuff. They can try it out, they can sort of, be like, great, this is awesome, I want to keep going, whatever, without anyone actually knowing that they're there, in a sense of it's this completely anonymous thing, which is sometimes really good and sometimes isn't very good, but especially for people who are wanting to try. Like I remember reading the other day that like 1 in 4 people in the UK is turning to a church service on a Sunday at the moment, because they're so accessible, and it's like you just go on YouTube and Sunday morning all of these churches are just there, and and you can just
it's amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah,
so
it works so well as like a bridge and like a try before you buy type vibe for church,
sure.
which is great. If you've never been before, you can kind of see what it's about.
Yeah.
A church door has been opened in every home. It's like it's quite a nice. It's like a nice thing to. I remember having conversations with people when it first happened, and they were basically saying like, oh, like how's this going to affect, like people aren't going to be going to church, how are we going to do this? But if anything, it's made it even stronger, because like you've kind of closed the doors of like regular church, but now you've opened a church in every single person's house. And potentially, like obviously a bit further after the, like when we go back to normal, it'll be a slow process, but potentially when things are like a bit more stable, you might even see more numbers coming through like actual church doors on a Sunday, which would be amazing to see. But yeah, with the church services though, is there anything that you've kind of picked up and kind of moved on from, or like are there any little bits that you've kind of you would suggest like avoiding, or things that you wouldn't like suggest putting in your church, or ways of doing things, should I say? I couldn't get what I was saying. Any
swearing? Cut out the swearing, maybe. It's a good question. I'm trying to think what I would have learned.
Swearing is a big no-no in the church world.
Just I mean in general, but you know.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
I don't know. I mean,
do you think there's anything to do with? Sorry, you go for it.
Oh, well, one thing like that could be a quite practical editing thing is like, I mean, and this is, I don't even know if it's my advice, but like, because it depends again who you're making your services for. But we noticed that like in this kind of age, people's attention span isn't very long, so people can like switch off. So I would say there is benefit in like cutting whatever isn't necessary, or like cutting a video so that it's cutting your check-in so that it does feel tight and doesn't drag on, and that like keeps people's attention really. So keeping the kind of transitions quick, and if you have like an interview, sometimes it doesn't work, and like I wouldn't do this with like a talk, but like you can get away with chopping stuff quite tight, like you probably would with this podcast, but like that is just cut out all my.
We cut out quite a lot on average. Exactly, it's quite embarrassing.
So you could just kind of cut out all the chaff and just like make it quite compact and leave in all the kind of gold.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that's I've noticed that with a lot of churches actually, whereas like a normal church service, it would be like an hour and a half, maybe pushing 2 hours. And now these church services are kind of hitting that 30 minutes to like an hour mark. And it just means that people can like, or like if they choose to, like I know my parents have started now watching St. Peter's, and then we'll then go and watch like Aaron's one, or for example afterwards. So they're getting two different churches in within the space of one church service in real life. So I think that's quite a nice little thing to think about. But
amazing.
One final question, which we ask every single guest.
In the two that we've already had on.
In the two that we've got so far. Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? Where do you want to see Henry Milne in 5 years' time? What's the dream?
That's a good question. I'm not very good at thinking far ahead. The dream. Well, in terms of like what I'm spending my time doing, like I hope to still be creating. I think like that's a big thing for me, and spending a lot of my time creating either music or art or videos or whatever. I'd see myself doing that still. I think 5 years time. So like, I know this is me, but it's linked to my wife Hannah is training to be a vicar. Well, actually, she's just finishing training. She's getting ordained this year to be a vicar. Yeah. Well, not to just be a vicar, but to be a priest in the Church of England. So she becomes a reverend. And so the plan for our life is that one day we would be a part of running a church ourselves. And so in 5 years' time, maybe that would be something that we'll be doing. So maybe I'll be leading a church, but also keeping creative.
Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, amazing. That's super exciting.
Awesome.
I think that is all for today.
This has been great.
Nice.
This has been so much fun. This is like we've had your nuggets of wisdom like shared with us.
I don't know. You just have to do a lot of cutting, I think.
Amazing. Well, if people are still listening, we love talking to people like Henry. We had some really good suggestions from last week. We asked people to send in some usernames for people that they want us to get on the podcast, and we usually ask a guest of what their favorite emoji is, so people can send it in to us. But I think they should send a llama and then a gun, just to
Very good.
and maybe they can tell us what the next single from the Llama Guns should be.
Nice.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on to chat with us.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for
It's been
having me.
technical issues galore.
You guys are great.
But it's been worth it.
Yeah. We will get something out.
That's brilliant.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Well,
Thanks so much.
Bye bye.
see you later.